Previously, I reviewed the new Avengers series out of order, starting with Volume 3, then moving on to Volume 1, and then Volume 2. For the sake of ease, I'm just going to be summarizing this from the beginning. In order to redefine the Avengers as the preeminent super team in the Marvel Universe, Marvel turned to writer Brian Michael Bendis. Bendis started things off with a massive event called Avengers Disassembled, which revolved around the team being attacked by an ungodly amount of villains, leading to the death of team members The Vision, the Scott Lang Ant-Man, and Hawkeye. They'd get better. It would eventually be revealed that the attack was the result of Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, losing control of her powers in the wake of the revelation that her mind had been wiped following the apparent death of her children. Wanda's father Magneto soon arrived to take her back to the island of Genosha to work with Charles Xavier. The Avengers broke up in the wake of the incident. Soon thereafter, Marvel announced a new Avengers series called New Avengers. The lineup would feature traditional stalwarts like Iron Man and Captain America, teaming with newbies like Luke Cage, Spider-Woman Jessica Drew, and the Sentry. Not to mention, Spider-Man and Wolverine were also added to the team. And that left fan reaction a little mixed, as it thought that the only reason Spidey and Logan were on the team was because they were the two most popular characters. Still, Marvel soldiered on. The team would come together when a power outage struck the island prison known as the Raft. They would fight back various villains through the night, but there would still be 42 escapees. The new team would soon discover that the source of the blackout was longtime Spider-Man villain Electro, who had been hired in order to try to break free longtime mutant resident of the Savage Land, Sauron. The team soon journeyed to the Savage Land where they confronted Sauron, only for the Dinosaur Man to be killed by Yelena Belova, a Black Widow replacement for Natasha Romanoff. It appeared that Belova was working for a faction of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, causing no amount of friction between the two groups. The second story arc revolved around the Sentry, a character who was created as part of a publicity stunt which said he was a long-lost Stan Lee creation. It also saw the debut of the Marvel Illuminati, a secret cabal that would effectively run Black Op missions throughout the Marvel Universe, and consisted of Iron Man, Charles Xavier from the X-Men, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, Doctor Strange, Black Bolt of the Inhumans, and Namor the Submariner. The Illuminati convened in order to discern who exactly the Sentry was. Robert Reynolds, the Sentry's civilian identity, claimed to have killed his wife, Linda. However, it turned out the Sentry's arch-nemesis, the Void, was in fact the manifestation of the darker aspects of Reynolds' personality, and he had actually covered up Linda's death. Linda Reynolds was in fact alive and well, and the Avengers called in Emma Frost from the X-Men to help Bob work through his mental problems and keep the Void at bay. The third volume consisted of a series of mini-arcs, the first of which saw the team journey to Japan to work with a new hero known as Ronin, who was originally thought to be a resurrected Hawkeye, but instead turned out to be a performance artist named Maya Lopez, who usually operated under the name Echo. The second mini-arc followed Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, who was working as a private investigator after she lost her Spider-Woman powers. She then wound up becoming something of a quadruple agent, working for Nick Fury, the Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D., and Hydra, the latter of whom surgically restored her powers and gave her breast implants for some reason. Also, Luke Cage married longtime girlfriend and mother of his child, Jessica Jones. In between Volumes 2 and 3, the New Avengers participated in a crossover event with the X-Men called House of M. Originally, House of M was supposed to end kind of in the middle of Volume 3, with the last part of Volume 3 making reference to it. However, due to scheduling conflicts, House of M actually came out much later than that, and, well, that led to some creative editing. House of M revolved around the Avengers and X-Men meeting to discuss the Scarlet Witch. Wanda was still struggling with her powers, and there was a thought that maybe they might have to do the deed and actually kill her. In order to protect his sister, Pietro Maximoff, aka the mutant Quicksilver, had her alter the whole world to have all involved living their ideal lives. However, the ruse proved fleeting, and eventually the facade began to crumble. In her anger, Wanda proclaimed no more mutants, resulting in all but 198 of the world's mutants losing their abilities, including Quicksilver, Magneto, and even the Scarlet Witch herself, apparently. The fallout from House of M plays an important part in the story we're covering today. This is New Avengers Volume 4, The Collective. A massive fireball falls from outer space and causes an explosion in the town of North Pole, Alaska. S.H.I.E.L.D. sends a team to investigate, where they spot an individual burning bright red, trudging through the snow. Unfortunately, this isn't the Human Torch, as the man turns around and blasts the whole group out of the sky. Maria Hill orders the rest of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to switch to global position monitoring in order to keep following the situation. They see the flaming man cross the border into Canada, and Sharon Carter points out that this is probably an ideal situation for the Avengers, but Maria Hill is reticent. Instead, Hill just places a call to Ottawa to dispatch Alpha Flight. Alpha Flight is the name of Canada's officially government-sanctioned super team. Their line consists mainly of mutants, which makes them a bit more akin to the X-Men rather than the Avengers. In fact, the group's most noteworthy alum is none other than Wolverine. Other noteworthy team members include the husband and wife team of James and Heather Hudson, aka Guardian and Vindicator, North Star, Sasquatch, and Puck. Alpha Flight prepare to take on the individual, and it isn't pretty as the whole team is completely obliterated and left to die in the snow. The situation has attracted the attention of the President of the United States, who contacts Maria Hill and demands that she call in the Avengers. Maria Hill is left no choice as the being crosses the border from Canada into the United States. The Avengers soon arrive in Detroit, except they haven't actually been called in yet. This is actually part of an inner-city outreach program spearheaded by Luke Cage, where they are practicing impact police work, basically standing around to keep drug dealers and the like from working the area. Unfortunately, their work is interrupted by the call from S.H.I.E.L.D. The Avengers are briefed on the situation as they head to Cleveland, where the individual has been spotted crawling out of Lake Erie. Wolverine takes the news of Alpha Flight's apparent destruction rather hard. The group gets some additional help as it turns out this is where Carol Danvers has taken up residence. Yes, this is back when Carol Danvers was still going by Ms. Marvel. However, to avoid confusion with Kamala Khan, I'm just going to be calling her Carol Danvers throughout this story. Captain America makes a request for a particular S.H.I.E.L.D. agent against Maria Hill's advice, though she acquiesces when he points out this is to help civilians. The Avengers also try to call in the Sentry, but he's still struggling mentally. Meanwhile, Spider-Man is dispatched to the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier along with Spider-Woman because she has clearance, with the reasoning being that Tony needs Peter to use his scientific brain along with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s high-tech equipment to analyze this being and try to figure out who or what he is exactly. Yes, I believe this is actually our first glimpse into the infamous Iron Spider costume. When Spider-Man first joined the Avengers, he and Tony Stark actually bonded over their mutual science backgrounds. As a token of appreciation, Stark gave Peter Parker this new armor. It basically acts as kind of a hybrid between Stark's Iron Man armor and Spider-Man's original costume. The main addition being 3 mechanical Waldos, which act as supplemental limbs, giving Spider-Man a total of 7 limbs instead of the traditional 8 that spiders usually have. Iron Man takes off and tries to reason with the being offering help. The being briefly refers to itself as Michael, a name that strikes a brief nerve with Tony. Unfortunately, before he can learn more, Carol interferes and tries to take Michael down. In turn, she gets blasted all the way to Toledo, and somehow this results in her binary powers returning. Okay, I did a whole video about the history of Carol Danvers and went in depth on her binary abilities back then. Just know that this is like the full extent of her powers, except has a tendency to just burn out after a while. However, this Michael person that Iron Man is encountering is reminding him a lot of an old Avengers villain named Korvac, who was a scientist in the 31st century who had the lower part of his body augmented by alien experimentation. This gave him the ability to absorb energy from any being in the universe, including Galactus. At several points, Korvac has traveled back in time and tried to take over the universe. On a park bench, a Draugr tries hitting on a woman reading a book, and he's responded to with an earthquake. The next group to approach the young woman might not get the same response, as S.H.I.E.L.D. informs Daisy Johnson that Captain America is in need of her services. Daisy Johnson is the offspring of Dr. Calvin Zabo, aka the supervillain Mr. Hyde, and an inhuman woman. She has the ability to create minor earthquakes in a localized area, so she goes by the name Quake. And yes, this is the character that originally started out as Skye on Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Back at Avengers Tower, the young Avengers are sitting down to brunch when Iron Man places a call to enlist the aid of the Vision. Despite the pleas of the others, only he is needed to work with Spider-Man on the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier. We don't really have enough time to do a deep dive on the Young Avengers, just know that it's a group of teen superheroes who formed in the wake of Avengers Disassembled. And at one point they managed to transfer the Vision's artificial intelligence into a body of armor designed by founding team member Iron Lad. Back in Cleveland, Captain America tries to get civilians to safety while Iron Man tries to relay Michael's energy readings to S.H.I.E.L.D. Michael responds by blowing the Iron Man armor off of Stark's body. Carol Danvers bails Tony out and gets him to safety and tries to take down Michael again. It's not very effective as he absorbs the binary power back and tosses her aside. That's when the Sentry comes through and knocks Michael all the way out into outer space. Cap uses an override code to reassemble Tony's armor while the others try to get Carol to calm down. On the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, the Vision arrives and begins cross-referencing the energy signatures with Spider-Man. They also watch footage from Alaska. The footage shows Michael emerging from the remains of a post office, and a look of postal workers in the area turns up the name Michael Pointer. It's then that the info on Michael's energy signatures pops up. They all belong to mutants, in particular mutants who were depowered during House of M, including the signatures of Magneto and his offspring. Basically what happened is, when the mutants all lost their powers, it wound up getting dispersed up into the atmosphere, and Michael Pointer was a mutant, or possibly just became a mutant, and he wound up absorbing all of those powers into his own body. Spidey inadvertently lets slip the phrase House of M, which catches Maria Hill's attention. The Avengers have been trying to keep the information on the event on the download from S.H.I.E.L.D., and they aren't pleased. Tony tells Peter to get him, the Vision, and Jessica off of the helicarrier, but they are soon surrounded. The three are taken into custody, but Spidey ain't talking. Unfortunately, it's not necessary for him to talk, as it turns out the entire interrogation is just a ruse to allow S.H.I.E.L.D.'s telepathic agents to scan him and learn all the information on House of M. As this is happening, Iron Man has re-armored up and confronted Michael, who is attempting re-entry to Earth. He manages to blast Michael back with a mutagenic field disruptor. I guess Tony Stark just had that weapon lying around somewhere. The Sentry soon recovers and tries once more to slow Michael down. Tony sends Cap, Luke, and Carol to go get the others. It's not needed, though, as S.H.I.E.L.D. has what they wanted. In space, Michael overpowers both Sentry and Iron Man, and then begins heading back towards Earth, in particular the island nation of Genosha. Genosha is a small island country off the northeastern coast of Madagascar that had a long-time history of treating its mutant population as slaves. That is until the United Nations stepped in and made Magneto the new ruler of the nation. Any peace, though, was short-lived, as at one point Genosha was attacked by an army of hybrid sentinels that apparently killed Magneto in the process, though I'll explain a little bit more of that later. Eric Magnus Lencher writes a log of his memories. It's either a book or a suicide note, he's not sure. Suddenly he's jolted from his chair as Michael has arrived on Genosha and the Avengers are not too far behind. Unfortunately, it doesn't take long for Michael to locate Magneto. Michael says that Magneto is the only one who could lead the mutants back to where they once were. Michael Pointer has been resisting the mutant energies he's absorbed, and the power needs someone who can use it right. Magneto begins to realize who it is he's dealing with as his power, and for some reason also his costume, are returned. Okay, this is referencing a character from the X-Men's comics called Zorn, who was a mutant born with a miniature star in his head. This gave him healing abilities alongside gravitational magnetism. That last bit is important as a few years later it was revealed that Zorn was really Magneto in disguise. Remember, Magneto was previously thought dead. Magneto then set about trying to lead a group of students from the Xavier School for the Gifted in a takeover in New York City, killing X-Men member Jean Grey along the way. However, it was then revealed that not only was Zorn not Magneto, he also wasn't Zorn. As Michael falls to Earth, Zorn through Magneto begins summoning an army of the dead to take on the Avengers. The Sentry attempts to take on Magneto only to be shot down. As this is happening, Maria Hill gets a call from Washington. The President wants Genosha bombed and Magneto killed, even if it also takes out the Avengers as well. Though she and the team aren't exactly on good terms, even she thinks this is a little too extreme. Instead, Maria Hill dispatches a group led by Sharon Carter and Daisy Johnson. A plan with Iron Man is initiated as he uses his field disruptor to instead absorb the energies and try to place them in a containment field. Daisy then manages to cause an earthquake in Magneto's brain, and this causes the power to exit Magneto's body, and the Sentry then flies the containment field into the sun. Afterwards, Magneto is taken on board a medevac copter, while Cap has to break the news to Daisy that no, this was just a one-off, she's not a full-time member of the Avengers. Unaware of everything that's happened, Michael is taken into custody to hopefully try to help him. It's then that Magneto's chopper explodes. No body is found. And that concludes New Avengers Volume 4, The Collective. How was it? Well, on the plus side, I really like the artwork in this. Mike Deodato Jr. is a personal favorite artist of mine, and I think he does a smash-up job on this. And I do think there's some nice story building here for the next arc, which takes place during the Civil War event. There are some references to the Superhuman Registration Act, there's S.H.I.E.L.D. not trusting the Avengers, they're not trusting superheroes in general, so it seems to be kind of nicely building towards that. Unfortunately, that's really about all I can say for this comic on the plus side. This thing is boring. It screams padding, it's really mundane. I mean, the Avengers don't show up in the Avengers until the second issue. It just feels weird. I mean, one of the main criticisms with Bendis is he does rely on the decompressed storytelling a little too much, and yeah, this is kind of the main example for his detractors. Also, Michael Pointer just is not an interesting villain at all. I mean, when they initially referenced him as Korvac, I think that would have been way more interesting, because again, Bendis rarely seemed to work in classic Avengers villains, and that would have been an opportune time to do something like this. Instead, it's just some guy from Alaska, and it just doesn't seem to have the impact. Not to mention, if you remember my House of M review, I said that, well, one of the reasons why that story really didn't have much impact is they pretty much set about undoing it from the get-go. And this is the prime example. This thing came out, I want to say 3 or 4 months after House of M ended, and Magneto's already got his powers back? Really? Yeah, nice impact there. I mean, next thing you know, Quicksilver will get him back too. In fact, he did. So yeah, they're already undoing House of M just after it ended. So again, it completely nullified the effects of that event. So yeah, I mean, it's not terrible, it's not bad, but I would really only recommend this to New Avengers completionists, and that's about all. I'm giving New Avengers Volume 4 The Collective a D. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review. Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcat productions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.